the government lying to you about the cost of your health insurance? Well, if the data that I'm about to show you is correct, then the answer is yes. This is a chart that shows what the government says is the cost of your health insurance. The data is pulled from the Consumer Price Index from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and was compiled into this chart by Charlie Bolello. And as you can see, over the last 5 years, it is showing that health insurance costs are down 19%. Now, over the last 5 years, I'm sure you've heard politicians on both sides of the aisle tell you that inflation is falling. And this is one of those numbers that gives them the ability to say that. However, if you look at this chart, this shows the reality that your health insurance costs have actually been rising steadily for over 25 years. Most people are simply not aware of how much their health insurance costs because typically the employer foots so much of the bill, to the point where in 2024, the average cost for family coverage, when you include the portion the employer pays, is over $25,000 per year. And it is not slowing down. Right now, insurers are asking for massive price hikes again for 2026. Blue Cross Blue Shield asking for a 27% hike, and the largest plans in states like Washington, Georgia, and Rhode Island looking to increase by over 20%. In fact, total healthcare costs have risen so dramatically over the past few decades that they've outpaced pretty much every other category. This chart from Visual Capitalist shows price changes in various categories from the year 2000 through 2023. And you can see that 2 of the top 4 categories are hospital services and medical care services, outpacing almost every other category of price increases for things like childcare, food, housing, cars, and electronics. The only other 2 categories that have risen at pace with healthcare costs are college costs. It's funny how that works, isn't it? The 2 areas that receive some of the most subsidies from the US government just happen to have the largest price increases over the last couple of decades. Shocker. But it's so bad that healthcare costs have now become the largest expense for most families. This chart, put together by New York Times, shows how healthcare costs have grown over the past 80 years, and they now represent a larger portion of the average family's total budget than every other category, including clothing, groceries, even housing and utilities. Now, of course, that is all healthcare costs put together. When we go back and look at this chart that shows the $25,000 on average that it costs for a family, this is just health insurance premiums. That $25,000 that would otherwise be in your paycheck does not include things like copays, hitting your deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, and every now and then when you accidentally do something that you thought was in network and that is actually out of network, and so you get a whole new set of bills with its own set of deductibles and out-of-pocket maximums. So why the disconnect? Why are the government's figures showing a drop in cost over the last 5 years when in reality, even just health insurance costs have continually gone up at one of the fastest paces compared to any other category? And total healthcare costs for families now represent the largest portion of the budget. Well, just like Warren Buffett likes to say, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. And with the US government, there is always an incentive to underreport price increases if they can. This is because if inflation is higher, the government's expenses directly increase. They have to pay more for Social Security. They have to pay more on the Treasury inflation protected securities, TIPS. They have to pay more on pensions, the cost of living adjustments. So they don't want their expenses to go up. If possible, they will underreport inflation where they can. So specifically with healthcare, how are they measuring this? They are not looking at the amount that you are spending on your health insurance, which is kind of odd considering they are telling you that the cost of health insurance has gone down. Instead, what they are looking at is retained earnings of health insurance companies themselves. That's right. They're actually just measuring basically profits of health insurance companies. They go to health insurance companies and they say, how much did you collect in health insurance premiums this year? And then they say, okay, now let's compare that number with how much you paid out on claims. And whatever the difference is, whatever is left over, is what the government uses to report health insurance costs. Now, the rationale they give for why they measure health insurance costs this way is because they say they are trying to somehow calculate the quality of the care that you are getting. In other words, if you just look at the amount that you pay in your health insurance premiums, that's not going to completely tell the whole picture of how much the total healthcare costs that you are getting. In other words, you might pay a little bit more in your health insurance premiums, but the cost of the care that you are getting, and therefore the quality of the care that you are getting, is so much larger that you are actually getting cheaper healthcare because you're getting so much more for what you're paying. That's how you can see your health insurance premiums go up, while at the same time, they tell you health insurance costs are going down. It's simply the difference between what the health insurance company gets from you and what they pay out on claims. And that difference has gone down over the last 5 years. But obviously that doesn't make a big difference to your bank account. So what can you do about this, if anything at all? It might surprise you, but there is a growing movement, a large number of people who are literally just walking away from the system completely. People who are literally canceling their health insurance plans and not replacing it with anything. These people tend to be generally fit, healthy people who rarely use their health insurance, if ever, and are just looking at this bleeding line on their budget and saying, why am I paying for something that I never use? And when I do use it, it ends up costing me more money anyway. Now, if just straight up canceling your health insurance sounds risky to you, obviously you're right. One bad car accident, you get diagnosed with cancer, you could have millions of dollars in medical bills overnight. But many people who are canceling their health insurance plans have counted that cost and are rolling the dice anyway, saying, hey, if something like that happens, I'm gonna have to work out a plan, a payment plan, negotiate it with the medical providers anyway, because I'm not just gonna be able to fork over millions of dollars. And oftentimes hospitals and medical service providers are very happy to negotiate with you because they'd rather get all of the money from you over a long period of time with a payment plan rather than having to sell it to collections and get a lot less. And it's funny because oftentimes large medical bills, when you do work out a payment plan and negotiate the amount down, those payment plans can end up being very similar to what you were going to be paying for your medical insurance premiums anyway. But the question is, what are these people doing for their actual healthcare when they need it if they don't have insurance? Well, the first thing is, they're still going to the doctor like normal anyway. Pretty much every medical provider out there will have a cash payment option for you. If you tell them, hey, I don't have insurance, how much is this going to cost? They will tell you the cash payment amount, and then you can just decide whether or not you want to do it. Now, when I quit my job as a stockbroker back in 2019 to start Heresy Financial, I went 2 years without having health insurance for me and my family. My kids were young. We went to the pediatrician all the time, and it was very affordable, very easy as well. And once we got health insurance, the cost actually went up, not even counting the premiums. The cost of just going to the doctor like normal went up once we started using insurance. But it's not just individuals who are deciding to opt out of this system. There's a growing network of doctors who are also fed up with the US health insurance system and are walking away from it. These are called DPC, or direct primary care doctors, and a quick Google search will show you that there are probably quite a few in your area that you didn't even know about. These are medical providers that do not work with insurance at all. You want a service from them, you call them up, ask them how much it will cost, and they tell you, and you can decide whether or not you want to do it, just like any other free market service or product. Now, on top of the savings that people are getting from not having to pay health insurance anymore and having cheaper medical services, people are deciding to become self-insured. In other words, they take the amount of money they were spending on health insurance and healthcare before, and they decide to put that in a separate account. They invest it, put it in something like some index funds. There's better options if you want to invest for better returns. If you don't know how to do that, I've got the guide. It's called the Hyper Growth Portfolio Blueprint, linked in the description below. But they will take that money, they will invest it, and it grows for them. And given the amount that most families spend on their health insurance premiums, those accounts will grow extremely fast. Meaning, if you can just make it through a couple of years without any catastrophic or unexpected medical expenses, pretty soon you will be able to become self-insured, because if there are any large expenses that come up, you will have the funding, you will have an account that can pay for it. Obviously, this is something that not everybody can participate in. There are many people, especially in the US, with how unhealthy American citizens are, who are desperately reliant on their health insurance. So please don't hear me wrong here. I'm not recommending that anybody do this. I'm not encouraging anybody to do this. I'm not even saying it's a good idea. What I am saying is that just like taxes, if everybody stopped paying for their health insurance overnight, the system would crumble and it would be replaced with something better that would attract people to come back because it was better. Because at the end of the day, every dollar you spend is a vote for the way you want the world to be. And unlike political votes, dollar votes are pretty effective. And the more expensive US healthcare gets, the more people will choose to opt out of the system. The less the US healthcare system serves the people that need it and want it, the faster it will be replaced by something better, especially if all that green starts flowing somewhere else instead. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.